Welcome back to the deep dive. It is Saturday, January 31st, 2026. If you've been looking at the world map this week, you probably see the usual suspects: Russia, China posturing, projecting this image of, ironclad control.
Uh-huh.
But we are going to spend the next 20 minutes or so poking some holes in that image.
It's a classic duck on the pond scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
Above the surface, everything looks majestic and calm.
Right?
But if you could just stick your head underwater, you'd see the legs are kicking frantically just to keep from drowning.
Exactly. We're calling this a special edition, Saturday Spy Stories. But the real theme here is, I think, control under strain. We aren't just looking at military maneuvers.
No, not at all.
We are looking at systems that are, they're overheating. We've got intelligence on a secret retreat in the Middle East, some casualty numbers from Ukraine that are frankly hard to wrap your head around, and a purge in Beijing that has effectively decapitated their military leadership.
And we can't forget the digital front. There is a cyber campaign happening right now against European infrastructure that is just rewriting the rules of engagement. It's messy, it's dangerous, and it's all happening in the shadows.
So let's start with the map. I think the general assumption, especially with Russia's foreign policy over the last decade, is once they plant a flag, they dig in. They don't leave.
That's the playbook.
But the intel we have this week suggests that rule is being broken in Syria.
It is. And it's happening very quietly, which in the intelligence world is usually the loudest signal you can get. We are seeing a confirmed withdrawal of Russian forces from northeast Syria, specifically around a place called Kamishli.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't looked at a map of Syria lately, why does Kamishli matter?
It's a critical logistics hub. For years, this has been a major friction point. You have the Syrian regime on one side, you have the Kurdish-led SDF on the other.
And Russia was the referee.
Russia was the buffer. They were the physical presence keeping those two from tearing each other apart. If Russia pulls out, that buffer just evaporates.
What struck me wasn't just that they were leaving, though, but how. This didn't sound like a standard rotation of troops.
No, this was not a change of shift. It was an orderly exit. They moved the heavy equipment out by air and ground transport. But the devil is really in the details.
Okay.
The intelligence indicates they left personal effects behind in the barracks.
And that's the tell, isn't it?
Oh, it is. When you see personal kits, family photos, non-essential gear left gathering dust in a locker, it implies speed.
A snap decision.
It implies a decision made at the political level with almost zero notice given to the rank and file. It screams, get the tanks, get the missiles, forget your toothbrush, we are leaving now.
And usually when Russia makes a big strategic move, the propaganda machine is blaring. They love to announce mission accomplished or redeployment for glorious victory.
But here, absolute radio silence. Moscow hasn't said a word. State media is pretending those troops are still sitting in Kamishli drinking tea.
So this is a retrench.
That's the word. They aren't abandoning Syria entirely. They're keeping the Haimam Air Base and the naval facility at Tartus. They need that Mediterranean access. But they're cutting the fat to save the muscle. They can no longer afford to be everywhere at once.
It feels transactional. We know the Syrian interim president is heading to Moscow to meet Putin soon. Is this withdrawal the price of admission?
It's very likely a bargaining chip. Russia is trading territory it can't hold for political favors it desperately needs. But you have to ask the deeper question.
Which is?
Why can't they hold it anymore? Why is a superpower stretching so thin that it has to abandon a strategic foothold in the Middle East?
And that leads us directly to the meat grinder in Ukraine. I was looking at the new data estimates for casualties, and I honestly had to double-check the zeros, 1.2 million.
Since February 2022, yes. That's the estimated total casualties. And to be clear on the terminology, that includes killed, wounded, and missing.
And the breakdown.
The breakdown is roughly 325,000 killed in action and about 875,000 wounded or missing.
That is a demographic catastrophe. 325,000 dead is. That's a medium-sized city just wiped off the map. That's not a military statistic. That's a generational gap.
And remember, Moscow denies this. They haven't released an official casualty update since September 2022. That's over 3 years of official silence.
But independent groups are tracking it.
Right. We have independent researchers, people literally counting fresh graves in cemeteries, scanning local obituaries, who have confirmed, by name, over 160,000 dead. And it's just the ones they can find publicly. That is the absolute floor.
The ratio stood out to me, too. It was something like 2.5 Russian casualties for every one Ukrainian.
Which just destroys the narrative of sustainable attrition.
Yeah.
You'll hear pundits say, oh, Russia has a bigger population, they can grind this out forever.
But the math doesn't work.
Mathematically, that's becoming untrue. When you are losing men at a 2.5 to 1 rate against a defending force, you are bleeding the state dry. You are hollowing out your workforce, your tax base, and your future birth rates.
Well, if you've lost 1.2 million people from your labor force and military, you have to replace them. The machine needs fuel. And this is where the story gets really dark. We're seeing what I'd call mobilization by desperation.
It's becoming a predatory system. The sheer cost of getting men to sign up is skyrocketing. We're seeing regional governments inside Russia slashing social budgets,
Slashing budgets for what?
defunding libraries, closing parks, cutting road maintenance services just to scrape together cash for recruitment bonuses.
Yeah.
It's a direct wealth transfer from the public good to the war machine.
But money clearly isn't enough anymore because the tactics are getting so deceptive. I saw this note about special UAV roles.
Oh, yeah.
It sounded like a timeshare scam, but for your life.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
Recruiters know that men are terrified of the infantry. They've heard the stories. So they put out ads saying, come be a drone operator.
It's a safe option.
To be safe in a bunker, miles from the front, flying a UAV like a video game. Yeah. They even put exit clauses in the contract saying you can resign after 6 months.
Sign here, stay safe, make money, go home.
Right. But here's the legal reality. Under Putin's mobilization decree, those exit clauses are null and void. The military owns you indefinitely.
So you're trapped.
You're tracked. Yeah. And once you're in uniform, a commander can legally reassign you. So you sign up to fly a drone, you get to the front, and the commander hands you a rifle and points at a trench. You have no legal recourse.
It's state-sponsored entrapment.
And they aren't stopping there. We're seeing criminal suspects being told they can avoid prosecution if they sign up. We're seeing medically unfit people with chronic conditions, heart issues being cleared for frontline duty.
Unbelievable.
One analyst calls it mobilization by attrition. It's not about finding good soldiers anymore. It's about finding warm bodies to plug the holes.
So you have an army staffed by the desperate, the deceived, and the unfit. That doesn't sound like a force capable of complex operations. But this rot isn't just on the front lines, is it?
No.
I want to pivot to what's happening inside Russia, because the infrastructure is starting to crack under the weight of corruption.
This is the enemy within. Logistics win wars, right? We'll look at Russian railways. There's a massive corruption scandal unfolding there right now.
Involving what?
A bribery network that spans 40 different regions.
And this isn't just, I paid extra for a better seat. This is about safety data.
Exactly. They were falsifying technical inspections for freight cars. Now think about what those trains are carrying in 2026.
Ammunition, heavy armor, fuel.
Right. And the data says these cars are safe, the wheels are good, the brakes are fine. But that data was bought and paid for.
So you have a high risk of catastrophic derailment, not because of Ukrainian sabotage,
but because of domestic greed. It's the system cheating itself.
And the state's response to this internal chaos is fascinating. They aren't trying to fix the transparency or fire the corrupt officials.
No, they're trying to eliminate the public's ability to even talk about it.
This is the new kill switch legislation.
Right. New laws are advancing that give the FSB, the security service, the power to shut down all communications.
All of them.
Internet, mobile, even the postal service, if they deem it a security threat.
Shutting down the mail feels almost retro, but what defines a security threat?
That's the catch. Officials explicitly admitted that the criteria will be defined by secret presidential acts. They said, on the record, that they want the rules to remain classified so that adversaries do not fully understand the red lines.
But that means the Russian public doesn't understand them either. It's the codification of arbitrary power. We can turn off your world, and we don't have to tell you why.
It's a sign of a regime that fears its own population's reaction to a crisis, say a massive train derailment or a sudden retreat from Syria, more than it fears the crisis itself. They're building a digital wall to keep reality out.
And while they are locking things down at home, they are still lashing out abroad. Let's talk about the tech angle here, because this control under strain dynamic is spilling over into Europe.
This brings us to the sandworm attack in Poland. It happened back in December, but we're just now understanding the full scope. Sandworm is a notorious Russian military intelligence cyber unit.
And they hit the Polish power grid.
They did.
Now, I saw the headlines. There were no massive countrywide blackouts, so a listener might think, okay, they tried and failed.
And that is a very dangerous assumption. They didn't turn the lights off nationwide, but they did something arguably worse. They accessed the operational technology, the OT systems, at about 30 different facilities.
So the industrial controls.
Yes. And they didn't just hack the software, they damaged the equipment beyond repair.
So they bricked the physical machinery with code?
Exactly. This wasn't espionage. It was kinetic damage. They burned out the controllers.
Yeah.
It's a warning shot. They're signaling, we can destroy your infrastructure without firing a single missile.
And this is happening elsewhere.
We're seeing similar probing in Latvia against their water and transport systems. It's a way to escalate without triggering Article 5, essentially.
It keeps the conflict in that gray zone.
Precisely. And they couple this with intense information warfare. Russian bot networks are flooding social platforms with this narrative of European fatigue. They take real quotes from Western politicians, strip away the context, and blast them out.
Laundering credibility, using our own open debate against us.
Which makes the diplomatic landscape for this week incredibly tense. Germany has just publicly rejected a mediator role.
They don't want to lead the talks.
Berlin wants no part of it. Meanwhile, officials are confirming there are draft security guarantees floating around that envision British and French troops stationed in a post-war Ukraine.
Not NATO troops, though.
Technically, no. Independent deployments. But Moscow has already said that's a distinction without a difference.
Yeah.
They view any Western boots on the ground as a red line. So the talks happening tomorrow in Abu Dhabi are taking place under an incredibly dark cloud.
It's a high-stakes week. But before we wrap up, we have to look east. Because Russia isn't the only superpower dealing with this control under strain. The intel from Beijing is painting a picture of a military leadership in total turmoil.
Oh, if you thought the Russian logistics scandal was bad, the purge happening in the Chinese military is on another level entirely. We are talking about the removal of Vice Chairman Zhang Yuxia and Joint Staff Chief Liu Zhenli.
For those not following the org chart, these aren't mid-level bureaucrats.
No, this is the absolute pinnacle. The Central Military Commission, the CMC, is the supreme command body. By taking these two out, Xi Jinping has effectively hollowed out the military leadership. He's removed the institutional memory and the experience from the room.
So it's just Xi and his political discipline enforcers. What is the operational impact of that?
Paralysis, absolute fear. If you are a Chinese general right now and you see the top dogs getting purged, are you going to show initiative? Are you going to propose a bold, risky plan? No. You are going to keep your head down, follow orders to the letter, and do nothing that could possibly get you noticed.
It creates a yes-man army.
And we are seeing the ripple effects in the cyber domain, too. Intelligence shows a temporary dip in high-initiative Chinese cyber operations. The hackers are keeping their heads down while the political winds blow over.
So that sounds like good news for us. A pause in the attacks.
A pause in volume, maybe, but not in intent. The intel warns that these sophisticated malware-free campaigns are still very active. These are the deep intrusions where they use legitimate administrative tools to hide inside critical infrastructure.
So they're not breaking things.
They aren't trying to break things right now like Russia is in Poland. They are pre-positioning. They are burrowing in, waiting for the day they might need to strike.
So Russia is the wounded animal lashing out, breaking machinery in Poland. China is the silent predator hiding in the network, waiting.
Two different strategies, but both born from systems that are prioritizing political control over operational efficiency. They're tightening the grip so hard they're strangling their own capabilities.
And that seems to be the through line here. We have Russia shrinking its global footprint to hide the cost of its war, essentially cannibalizing its own society to keep the war machine running. And then you have China purging its top generals to ensure loyalty at the cost of competence.
It creates this landscape of fragility. And I think that so what for our listener is this. The danger in 2026 isn't necessarily that these countries are stronger than we thought. The danger is miscalculation.
Because they've broken their own feedback loops.
Exactly. When you fire the generals who tell you the truth, when you hide the casualty numbers from yourself, when you blind your population, you stop understanding reality.
And systems that can't see reality.
They make terrible, tragic mistakes. They become brittle. They look strong right up until the moment they snap.
And that is what we need to watch. Not the projection of power, but the cracks in the foundation. Because when a superpower tries to cover up a failure and can't, that is when the lashing out becomes truly unpredictable.
A sobering thought to take into the weekend.
It is. Stay curious, keep an eye on those headlines from Abu Dhabi tomorrow, and remember, the official story is rarely the whole story. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Stay vigilant.